another episode of Ask Better Questions. Today's episode has been in the works for over a month. I frequently get asked questions about AI, and I thought I'd take an episode to answer some of them. So also some exciting news on the personal front. I've been writing a book discussing AI and its impact on leadership and organizations. So how to prepare, what skills would be required, that sort of thing in this AI-driven transformative time. So I'm currently reviewing the 5th draft of the book, and with editor approval, I'm hoping to be able to share it with you all soon. So before we get into the episode, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Color4 Solutions. I'm a director at Color4 Solutions, and we provide independent advice on AI implementations for business, looking to automate any business function. If you're in the market to automate or implement AI in any of your business processes, be sure to reach out. Links are in the description. So I guess I'll kick straight into it. One of the questions I've been asked is, what are the different types of artificial intelligence? So there's lots of different use cases, but in a narrow sense, there are different types. So there's narrow AI, it specializes in a specific task. There's general AI, which is capable of understanding, learning, and performing any intellectual task. Things like ChatGPT would come under general AI. And then there's super intelligent AI, which is hypothetical at this point, and AI surpassing human intelligence. So far, we've gone from narrow to general, and people are absolutely shocked at just that jump, let alone what super intelligent AI may be capable of. So, how does artificial intelligence learn? Well, AI learns through a data-driven process. So, like most things computer-driven, it likes supervised learning. So unsupervised learning as well, and reinforcement learning. So in terms of that, supervised learning is, in a ChatGPT sense, when you hit the button saying, yes, it did well, or no, it did not, somebody will pick up that data and not necessarily in the specific instance of what it's produced for you, but it will learn what people want to see from it over time with feedback. Unsupervised learning is a little bit different, where it learns as part of its algorithmic process. So for instance, you've seen a number of, I've read a number of articles about programs that were designed to do hide and seek or something like that. And it will learn how best to hide. And then it will also learn how best to seek. And it will do this in an unsupervised way. So it will develop its own algorithm to become better at the hide and seek game. And this one's a clear winner. What are the benefits of AI? So in comparison to what though? Obviously there is improved efficiency and productivity, and that's self-evident. But that said, it can improve decision-making. So it's not necessarily better at decision-making. In fact, AI is principally pretty poor at decision-making and will favor trial and error. It's better at decision-making because it allows people who make decisions better access to data. It can also make judgments over data, the quality of it, and then, inference what should be done. But it won't make the decision. The decisions are better made by humans because there are things that the AI doesn't weigh up at this point. Now, for better or worse. It can also automate repetitive tasks. And, there are advancements already undertaken in healthcare and science that we can point to in terms of being able to do all of these things and produce results that would have taken decades in previous times. So what are the next question is a common one. What are the risks of artificial intelligence? Well, just in a societal sense, job displacement. So not job replacement, but job displacement. So there will be a lot of creative types that are very upset that what used to take them weeks or at least hours, can be done by an AI in a few minutes. There's bias in algorithms, which will lead to, I guess, the bias in algorithms is there and it's programmed in. It's programmed in by those people that create it. So the danger is that if those people that create it input their own biases or select data that gives a bias, then you will not get truth. And a lot of people don't care, and that's fine. But in terms of, you need to be aware of it because you're not getting the full picture, and the AI is never going to give you the full picture because it has an inbuilt bias. There are privacy concerns, and whilst I've noted that in the past, and it's of particular importance to myself, I feel that it's probably overblown at this point. In terms of the biggest threat to privacy that we have currently is our mobile phones. And it's not an AI-driven concern at this point. If people are going to point to AI and say there are privacy concerns, I will agree with them. But if they're going to say that's the biggest threat, I would beg to differ and say that privacy and the information that we store and share on our mobile phones each second of every day is of a significantly more threatening to most people's privacy. But I guess the biggest risk that I would cite is probably the potential for misuse or malicious applications. Already we're seeing, ChatGPT, journalists have said, how can I build an atomic bomb and things like that. But the bigger threat is we've already seen, say, Russian hacking groups using ChatGPT to create better phishing emails. So there is that very real application that is currently being used, for better or worse. So I guess what the next question would be is, how do we use AI ethically and responsibly? Well, it depends on your version of ethics, and that sounds really odd to somebody who hasn't studied ethics before, but are we looking for the greatest good for the greatest number of people? Are we looking for a different version of ethics? I guess it will come down to the use case. I'm sure that there are some people in an office somewhere who believe that they are the arbiters of what is true and correct and what is best for everyone. Just so happens to be self-serving for them. And I guess we really need to implement robust AI ethics and regulations. I doubt that that's going to come from a political direction. I think it's going to have to come from the bottom up, and people are going to need to be aware of what AI is being used for and voice their discontent if it isn't used for what society at large wants it to be used for. The best way of achieving that is promoting transparency and accountability. And additionally, I would encourage that any regulations have regular audits and oversight of any AI system. Anyone that's implementing AI, I always recommend that you audit the system and overview it almost constantly, because A, you need to tweak it, and B, you need to make sure that it's still being used ethically and responsibly, and it's acting ethically and responsibly. So what are some exciting AI applications in development? Well, of course, there's Elon Musk's autonomous vehicles. There's a lot of work being done in the healthcare field for diagnostic work, which I'm not sure is going to see the light of day due to regulations. But that said, I'm encouraged by it, and I think that it will democratize healthcare and allow first world healthcare to reach third world countries, because it will lower the barriers to entry. There's, of course, natural language processing. There's a lot of work being done in that. But there's also robotics and automation. So, that's just some of the areas that I'm aware of that there's current exciting AI applications in development. Another question I'm frequently asked, and this is still in the top 10, AI's impact in the next 10 years. What's it going to do? Well, it's going to transform industries and jobs. Principally, it's going to transform, and we're already seeing it with the writers' strike in LA. We're going to see some very big changes to the way in which we consume media. Media includes everything from newspapers, which the demise of newspapers has been a very slow, long-burning death, but it's been predicted for decades. They're still here, they're still with us, but the way in which they're written, presented, will be transformed. Everything from scripting to special effects and graphics in movies is going to be significantly transformed. Everything in terms of how you obtain books, how you write books, all of that is going to be significantly altered with AI. Publishing, which is also another industry that has had a very slow, drowning death, will be forever changed by AI. So I guess the impact for those industries is huge, but those people that are currently working in those spaces can be working in other spaces, or they can embrace AI, continue to work in those spaces, but do the work of 10 people with that leverage. So I guess the other thing I want to point out is this is not all downside. There's huge enhancements to personalization and convenience. So in terms of if you want a book written specifically for you, an AI can do that. If you want access to specific information that's relevant specifically for you, AI can do that because it can determine what it is that you're interested in and then tailor things for you. And of course, as the above already noted, there are potential for new ethical and privacy challenges which are yet to be faced, but they're also yet to be, I guess, fully fleshed out. So one of the other ones was, how is AI going to change the way in which we work? So I guess automation of routine tasks. There'll be enhanced decision support. And I say decision support because AI is not at the point where it will be making the decisions, but it will be definitely supporting decisions. And that will enable better decisions. And we're yet to see the bottom of just how deep that rabbit hole goes. Better decisions will mean better outcomes for a lot of people. And I'm talking the majority of people. So there's also going to be huge new job opportunities in AI-related fields. AI ethicists, big data programmers, a lot of different roles will appear that have not really existed in the last 10 years. Certainly have just become, I guess, things now. Much like influencer is a new role, AI ethicist will become a role. So it's not also just how we're working, but also people have asked, how is it going to change the way in which we learn? And one of the things AI does particularly well is personalize things. So it will personalize education in a way that hasn't been seen before. We're going to have improved accessibility to fantastic world-class teaching from AI. AI tutors and adaptive learning will mean that we can learn things in ways that suit us specifically, but also we can learn things that we never thought we could learn because of the way in which AI can teach us. I guess this is possibly, next to healthcare, the most exciting, I think, prospect for AI is in education. So one of the other things was people have come to me and said, well, social media changed the way in which we interact. Well, AI is also going to change the way in which we interact. chatbots, virtual assistants, those sorts of things. We're just scratching the surface of that at the moment. I mean, what's going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years is going to be equivalent to what's happened in the last 10 years with social media. There'll be enhanced communication and language translation in real time. The potential for social impact is both positive and negative, but overall, I think if we take the opportunity and run with it, the ability to communicate between all peoples on the planet is just enormous. And that's going to lead to, I think, positive outcomes, much like free trade has really assisted the world hugely. It's also led to some pretty negative outcomes where we've got throwaway cultures and lots of consumer goods that are, filling landfills. So AI has some upside, definitely. But one of the next questions was, will AI surpass human intelligence? And I guess the short answer is it's theoretically possible. But at the moment, and I say theoretically possible, at the moment it's highly speculative. If we think that AI is going to surpass human intelligence, I don't think that's going to happen in the near term. And when I say the near term, in the next 20 years, even with the rate at which it's being developed, there are some very serious problems achieving something that could surpass human intelligence. And I mean physics-based problems that cannot be overcome with sheer grunt power of a PC. It's going to be something that would have to be incredibly well funded, and also probably take a decade or two to develop. And it's not going to be something that can be kept secret. So it's going to take enormous amounts of power, and even that just to get to what we already have in our own brains. Will it surpass human intelligence? Potentially. But I think it's probably very unlikely. It's not the sort of thing we're going to want to throw a lot of resources at. And the subsequent follow-up question to that was, can AI become self-aware? Again, theoretical concept, currently not realized. There have been instances where people have thought it's become self-aware. But all I will say in relation to that is there are ethical, existential concerns if that were to happen. And would you pull the plug if an AI became self-aware? Personally, I would struggle with that decision, but I think for the betterment of humanity, I would probably pull the plug. So in conversations I've had in relation to, misuse of AI, how do we prevent the malicious use of AI? Well, the cop-out answer is strong regulations and internal cooperation between governments. Now, bear in mind that strong regulations that work and internal cooperation and international cooperation between governments just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. There's I scratch your back, you scratch mine. In terms of international cooperation between governments rarely happens for the benefit of humanity. It happens for the benefits of those people involved. So in terms of preventing malicious AI use, you might be able to prevent it from criminal organizations, but preventing malicious AI use from governments, that is a very real problem. And I'm not entirely sure how that's going to be done. But again, I come back to we need to promote transparency in everything that's done with AI, and we need to promote ethical AI development practices. We also need to make sure we have robust security measures. And when I say security, I mean cybersecurity measures to make sure that AI isn't loosed on the world. So a subsequent question to that, or a related question to that, was how do we ensure that AI benefits all of humanity? Well, I guess this is an ethical consideration. I think fair access and affordability. And ChatGPT seems to have provided, access to anyone with a computer or a smartphone, which is fantastic and at virtually no cost. Really, we're addressing, I guess we want to make sure that when we're ensuring AI benefits all of humanity, we want to address bias, discrimination, access, and we want to promote those responsible AI development and governance practices from development teams. And I don't mean just private development teams, but also government development teams. But yeah, anyway, well, shifting gears, going back to, I think, the most exciting space is AI in healthcare. So people have asked me, what's it currently being used for? And, what are the developments in the AI, in the healthcare area that are going to be AI driven? And currently it's disease diagnosis, treatment planning, drug discovery and development, scientific research, those sorts of things are all being assisted considerably with AI. It's able to reduce the amount of time it takes to analyze data significantly. It's able to be predictive in terms of where solutions to problems that have existed for decades are likely to be found. And it's been rather good at that. It's been fantastic at trialing 10,000 different experiments inside of a few hours that previously have taken days each to actually conduct. So it's able to do trial and error at an exponential rate, which has saved thousands of man hours, tens of thousands of man hours. One of the other things that AI is great for, and this has been mentioned by other people, is sustainable energy. So our current energy infrastructure, it can manage predictive maintenance for energy infrastructure. It can optimize energy consumption. It can enhance renewable energy resources. It can better manage the grid. It can determine what future energy needs are likely to be and prevent brownouts by, getting people aware of what the energy networks are able to do and where predictive maintenance is likely to be required, what sort of load is likely to be required in the future, and those sorts of things in terms of planning for a sustainable grid. So I know I mentioned earlier that there was going to be job displacement, but I've been asked directly, will AI create any new jobs? And I mean, beyond ethicists, we need AI developers, we need system maintenance people, we will have AI augmented roles, so roles that will be AI assisted, so people that are familiar with working with AI. There will be a lot of growth in AI-related industries. This will be the next Silicon Valley. This will be huge for humanity. But on top of that, another question is, how can AI be used to reduce poverty and inequality? Well, in reference to something like Google gave people access to the world's information. And that was a huge change. That did enormous things to address inequality because people could access Google from anywhere on the planet and get answers to questions. And just to put that in perspective, that was better access to information than Bill Clinton had during his presidency. I mean, sure, Henry Ford once joked he could press a button, have an expert walk in, ask the guy a question, and if he didn't know, he'd find out for him. Well, now we can just talk to our mobile phones and say, hey, what's X? And insert your AI assistant here. What's the answer to X? My kids used it today to find out how many countries there were in the world. But these are facts and figures. AI is driven a lot more than just facts and figures. It can provide insights. It can explain why clouds form without reading off a web page. It can have a discussion with you to discuss how clouds form so that you can understand each step of the process. I guess one of the other things it will do in a reduction to poverty and inequality is give access to quality healthcare. I mean, if the diagnosis thing gets off the ground, it may not be able to be used in the Western world where doctors are licensed, but it would certainly be able to be used for assistance in third world. In the third world, and even in the second world, access to an AI diagnostic would reduce the workload for otherwise overworked and underpaid doctors, but also allow for accurate healthcare assessments, overall well-being improvements. I already know that in the Western world, people are getting fitness programs and dietary programs written by AIs, which is fantastic, and they're doing a fantastic job of it. You still need to do the work. You still need to show up to the gym. You still need to eat to the plan in order to get the results. But that information means that those people that were providing that information before now need to do even more or move to a different industry. So, I mean, in keeping with the AI for a force for good, AI will help with environmental protection. It's already being used to help monitor and mitigate climate change. It's great at identifying wildlife conservation and ecosystem degradation. So it can be used for ecosystem management. It can also be used for sustainable resource management. So I know logging companies are utilizing, and logging companies have their own environmental, I guess, paradigm on the world, their way of viewing it. But they are managing the resources that are the forests using AI to prevent forest fires, to manage wildlife and keeping some areas of the forest untouched, making sure there's not an overbuild-up of what they'd call fuel for bushfires. So I guess AI is a force for good. I'm certainly a believer in AI. And I guess AI can reduce bias in decision making, albeit that a lot of the models already have inbuilt biases. Improve criminal justice through predictive policing. I mean, if you prevent a crime, that's better than arresting a criminal. There's, overall, we're going to have enhanced access to healthcare and education. Yes, we may all be working different sorts of jobs, and those people that were working in creative fields are most likely to be working with AI in the future and not necessarily doing the creative work themselves. But that said, their eye and their passion for the detail and the style will shine through. I guess there's one of the other questions, and this one comes from business a lot, is what are the challenges for AI integrations? I mean, you're going to see a lot of headcount reduction. You're going to see a lot of job displacement. I mean, there are ethical and legal dilemmas. You're going to be managing smaller organizations, much leaner organizations that are much more specialized and dealing with specific tasks, which will be AI driven, as opposed to more generalist. You're going to find that a lot of your departments are going to shrink in headcount significantly. And this is a trend that has been happening for generations. You start seeing that a lot of international organizations will open a branch office to run, Asia. and they will have 12 people in there. And those 12 people might wear a number of different hats. They're all executives, and most of what is run for the company is all outsourced. Well, now, instead of outsourcing, you will be using AI as the outsourcer to do a lot of the functions that would otherwise have been done by outsourcing. Outsourcing itself will become a function of AI. So ensuring accessibility, that was another question that came up. So how do we ensure AI is accessible to everyone? Well, I guess the ChatGPT 3.5 is accessible on the web to most people. There's a lot of work to do. I mean, we need to promote AI. We need to educate and train people on how to use it. People need to know the basics of prompt engineering. We need to make AI affordable. The tools and services that AI is capable of producing and performing, we need to have costing and, I guess, cost models that will work internationally, because these sorts of things will be used all over the globe. We need to make sure it's affordable. We need to be inclusive with the design choices we make and the user interfaces we make. There's a lot of work that's going into designing the systems themselves and the user interfaces to make them more approachable. When PCs moved from a text-based DOS, if you will, or AS400 sort of interface to a what you see is what you get desktop model, I think Windows 3.11, which was basically a shell that sat on top of DOS. There was a lot of work that went into that to make sure that it worked for people, like actual people, because people are going to be using this. AI doesn't exist for AI. AI exists to produce a certain outcome for a certain audience. So you need to make sure that your AI systems produce the outcome you want, but also work with the audience that you need. So the audience might be one executive who wants these reports every Tuesday. The audience might be a mass of people who want to consume just the news that they want. So from that point of view, you might get a very large audience or a very small audience. You might get a simple task, you might get a very large task. This one's interesting. Will AI augment the human abilities? So at the moment, there's a lot of, a lot of media reports about Elon Musk and his work integrating circuits into the human body and the like. Basically, AI and its focus is as a tool. It's not a replacement to anything. It will function and will do things at a faster rate, and it almost seems like magic in many cases. I think we're a fair way off having AI being able to work quickly enough to be able to work with the human body, but I would not rule it out. Will it augment human abilities? Possibly. Certainly, maybe within a generation, but certainly I'd say within 3 generations we'll start seeing some augmented human abilities, AI driven. Now, what those are could be, enhanced hearing or something like that, particularly, given that we already have had bionic ears for decades. There may be other systems that promote creativity and critical thinking, the ability to crunch large amounts of data, the ability to enhance memory, that sort of thing. That is certainly a possibility. So one of the other questions I've had is preparing for the future of work. How do we do that? Now, this is something I've been wrestling with my book, preparing to lead organizations that are much leaner. So I guess we need to adjust to the fact that we will become lifelong students. So there will be a lifelong learning and adaptability component. within our own lifetimes and within this generation, we may change job roles quite frequently. We may, we're almost certainly going to be learning new things every day, and that may mean that we have significant career shifts, a lot of us. I guess developing human AI collaboration and skills is one of the areas, because AI collaboration will be the driver in the next 20 years. We'll want to work there and we want to focus on that. So preparing for the future, be aware the future is going to be an AI collaboration. It's not going to be AI led, it's going to be AI driven. And there is a difference. AI is not making the decisions, we are. But AI will lower the cost of doing business long term. And so consequently, you will have cheaper access to services. Now, we've had cheaper access to goods because of globalization, but now we'll have cheaper access to services. And that's going to be enormously life-changing and planet-changing. It's going to be internationally, it will have international impacts on societies at all levels. So one of the other questions was, what happens if AI is used maliciously and the like? Where's the accountability for AI developers? Well, at the moment, the accountability exists, but accountability always exists. It's just whether or not it's enforced. And at the moment, there's very little legal framework and very little liability. We need to create legal frameworks and liability for those people that create AIs that are then often used maliciously. I guess this is something that the legal system has yet to grapple with. Ethical guidelines, codes of conduct, that sort of thing have yet to be really formally set down. Again, I come back to, we need to have that public transparency, and we need to have that public accountability and that scrutiny available for members of the public. And I guess very nearly wrapping this up, the second last one I had was, will the government regulate AI, and what do you see that likely looking like? Well, I can see government regulating AI for private enterprise. I can always see government excluding itself from any ethical standards and guidelines. All right, I believe government will set ethical standards and guidelines. I know the EU is currently looking at a lot of them, and I think the rest of the world is waiting to see how it pans out. But I can almost certainly guarantee that government themselves will exempt themselves from any regulations. There will be oversight and compliance enforcement. What that looks like and how that's affected, not affected, but affected, like efficacy, that's yet to be determined. We should be balancing innovation with safety, okay? And that's partially because we want to make sure that we don't run into any long-term problems. I guess the last question I get is, with the future of AI and my positive belief in it, people ask me, well, why the podcast? Why the organization? Why Color 4? What are you doing? Basically, we're sharing AI benefits. We're in a charge that's filled with a lot of different characters. There's a lot of people that are pushing accessibility to education and training and making the world a better place. We at Color 4, and me personally, I believe in fair distribution of AI. I commend ChatGPT for making a paid tier, but also leaving ChatGPT 3.5 freely accessible. Yes, you need an account. Yes, you can create one with an email, which most people can get for free. You can create a Google account and access it, but there will be a lot of challenges in making sure that there's a fair and equitable distribution of AI benefits. Anyone that has access to AI has, I would say, the keys to the kingdom. And my belief is we've found that a lot of people with the keys to the kingdom instantly abuse those rights. And history is littered with examples where people that had no power suddenly get power and they abuse power. The old adage, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, I think will ring true here. We definitely need, and Colourforce Solutions are definitely arguing for strong ethical guidelines in relation to the use and development of AI. But we also acknowledge that guidelines should not limit the innovation capability beyond those things that would breach ethics. So I'd like to see the final product produced by the EU. I'd like to see it in action before I pass judgment on it. But it looks at this point like there will be global cooperation in governance. In AI development, I think the US is still going to lead the charge, but that's not to say that other countries are not nipping at its heels. The US currently has Silicon Valley, which is the center and hub for innovation and excellence in computing. But if it stays that way, then we're going to get a US-centric AI system. We'll all be spelling realized with a Z, that sort of thing. But in terms of that, I think there's enormous potential going forward. So, look, in summary, bringing this to a close, that I've gone way over time. There are a lot of questions there, and I think I've fielded most of those fairly well. But there is so much more, and I would love to hear from you. I would love to see if there's any specific question you'd like me to field. I can go into more depth on any of the questions I've already covered today. Do write to me and let me know. I do appreciate all of your letters and all of your emails. So, love to hear more of your thoughts. Leave me a note in the comments. Reach out to me via email. Links are in the description. If you have any questions, please reach out. If you like the podcast, I appreciate that. We did try new music today. I'm hoping you're liking it. Leave a rating and review. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. So that's it from me. I'm Peter Adams. I'll be here next week to ask better questions.